I came home one day complaining to my wife, who's very supportive. She's a school administrator, and she finally said, probably after the 100th time of being supportive, she goes, man, she literally looked me right in the eyes and said, quit bitching. You know, and I'm like, and I bitch a little bit more, I thought she's right. I mean, I can either accept it, which I could not accept it, or do something about it. So that put me back in the university. I got 2 degrees in leadership. And what I recognized and there's a lot of great leadership theories.
Hey guys, welcome back to Beyond the Science. We are live here at the FABA Conference celebrating the 45th anniversary of FABA. Absolutely. Joe back with us. How you feeling, Joe?
Man, I'm feeling good. I'm ready to get into this one, Dr. Paulie.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. What about you, Wes?
Yes, sir. Always a pleasure hearing from him.
Joining us is the one and only Dr. Paulie Gavoni, behavior scientist, author, speaker, and Golden Gloves champion. Let's welcome to the show, guys.
Yes, thank you, fellas. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so tell us quickly what it's like being back at FABA.
Man, I've been coming here since I was in 2006. And I'll tell you, when I first used to come, it used to be about partying. I used to show up in like sandals and shorts and stuff, man. I couldn't get up in the morning, because I was so hungover. But I got to meet a lot of people, and I never thought I'd be coming to present at these conferences because I was just a slacker, man. I wasn't researching, I wasn't. But I thought, I have some things to say. And I heard guys like Merrill. You got Merrill here?
Yeah.
I heard Merrill come in. Can I cuss on this or no?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So I heard Merrill speak. I heard him and Pat Fryman. And Pat Fryman is like, really clean, clear. Merrill's like, fuck this and fuck that. And I was going to dip out of the field. When I heard them, I'm like, I kind of feel I'm drawn by both of those, and they're both being very authentic. So when I saw them, like, what? I think maybe I want to stay in the field because I thought about leaving it because I felt like there was a lot of like people judging each other, just didn't feel aligned with my values at first. And so, yeah, I came back and started presenting on my own and just kind of being me,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like being back here. FABA's awesome.
It was awesome.
That's cool.
FABA is awesome. I'm not going to lie. It's become one of my favorite conferences so far now.
I met a lot of great people.
Yeah.
Like a lot of great people. So I'm looking forward to come back. I'm looking forward to party too a little bit.
Yeah, tonight is
tonight's
yeah. I'm ready.
Let's see who can outdrink me.
So I got to ask you this. So you've written some best-selling books on leadership. Can you quickly talk to our audience about why ABA and OBM is so powerful in schools and organizations?
Oh, well, I mean, I really look at things. You can overlay ABA on anything, right? I mean, all results require behavior. If we unlock behavior, we can, unleash people's potential, So leadership and systems are like everything to me. And I don't see leadership as being a position. There's a lot of people that are in positions that I would argue like are not leaders. In the book, I call them ass clowns, but it's really not. I'm not meaning to call them something, right? It's their behavior. So it's ass clownery. But you've ever showed up to work and there's that person that you're like, you see their car in the parking lot, you're like, fuck, man, I don't want to go in today. Yeah, they're very present, it makes you feel like, it's not bringing out the best in you, so you're operating out of fear. And I experienced that for so many years and saw so many people like kind of being beat down. And I would put my head down. Like I wouldn't say anything. And I wrote about it in one of my books where I feel kind of shamed about not sticking up because I value people, but I was also afraid for my job or afraid that they were going to come down on me, and I hate that. And so I came home one day complaining to my wife, who's very supportive. She's a school administrator. And she finally said, probably after the 100th time of being supportive, she goes, man, she literally looked me right in the eyes and said, quit bitching. And I'm like, and I bitch a little bit more, I thought she's right. I mean, I can either accept it, which I could not accept it, or do something about it. So that put me back in the university. I got 2 degrees in leadership. And what I recognized and there's a lot of great leadership theories, transformational leadership, authentic leadership, path goal theories, these are all theories. They're like different paths to a common goal, but the science of human behavior is the vehicle for navigating those paths, right? So, so that's what I did. In school, my books are all about leadership, either positional leadership, like organizational leadership, or even self-leadership, like we have to understand as behavior analysts, we should be engaging in behavioral leadership. And that means we are actually a variable in the environment of others. And in order to get the outcomes that we want, especially if we have a position of leadership, we are the arrangers of the environment, right? So, we know that's the environment that impacts behavior. So when you understand that, and you understand the basic principles of human behavior, especially OBM, I think is the greatest leadership toolbox you can have, you can really start to arrange the environment in a way that gets the best out of people. And I love that, man. I want to see people happy. I mean, we're always talking about how are we going to get, how are we going to reinforce the adults? And people are like, we're going to give them gas cards or Dunkin' Donuts. I'm like, listen, guys. People just want to feel valued and they want to produce valued outcomes, right? So it starts with values. What's important to people? If we're going to bring out the best in the learner, for example, we got to bring out the best in the teacher, you know? So we can't discount that. And the principles are exactly the same for that learner that we're working with as they are for that teacher. In a very real sense, that teacher is also a learner. And that's for any organization. Just change the noun of the role, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, every time you say bringing out the best in people, obviously I think about the late, great Aubrey Daniels. What would you say the number one thing that you learned from him?
Man, so the big shift for me with organizational behavior management, I had the benefit of getting, spending a week. I got like a scholarship. I've been lucky, man. I got a scholarship to spend a week with Aubrey Daniels at International. Made some good friends there. Jose Martinez Diaz gave me a scholarship to go back to FIT because I had a BC ABA and I was going to let it drop. Been very fortunate just since you mentioned that. But the biggest thing about OBM is that when I was going to schools, I was looking at learner behavior, right? OBM zooms out and looks at learner behavior as result. This makes sense because anytime you're trying to get results through the behavior of others, you really need to understand OBM, right? So instead of just looking at behavior, I started looking at behavior and results. And that result is that behavior of the student is a result of what's going on in the environment, right? In order to change that student's behavior and sustain it, I have to adjust the environment. So how am I going to do that? Well, that leader, say that classroom leader, again, is the arranger of what's going on in the environment. So I'm going to have to get some changes in their behavior to sustain, which means I got to get them in touch with reinforcement. And nobody wants to deal with behavior challenges. So how can I help this teacher, for example, behave well enough and long enough that they're going to get change in student behavior? And that student behavior change is going to be a naturally occurring consequence that maintains that teacher's behavior. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. It does.
Yeah.
Wish you can teach my daughters. Math teacher this.
Go ahead and jump in, Wes.
No, I'm just, man, I'm just absorbing everything in. One of the things I was thinking about as you were talking, just with leadership, like how did you, like what was it that kind of sparked that for you?
The leadership piece?
Yeah.
I think it was just seeing so much poor leadership out there. And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't come through a traditional ABA program. I trained at Behavior Analysis Inc. before you had to come out of a university. And I think it was a real blessing in a sense because I wasn't conditioned to see the application of ABA just with special needs individuals, even though that was the example that was being used, right? So I came out, I was not surrounded by any behavior analysts at all. And so I was doing things like trial and error, and I was a slacker again. I wasn't doing research, I wasn't going to conferences, but I started to think, like I'm an MMA coach, right? So I'm like, well, this is behavior, and they're trying to produce results. So let me kind of put this behavioral lens on when I'm working with my fighters. And I started to accelerate stuff, And that's the same thing with school. So I think, when it came to like leadership, I'm like, it's the same thing. Leadership is still about behavior and results. Aubrey talks about the measure of a leader can be found in the behavior of the followers, right? I say that, and I agree with that. I say that there's a 4 functional response class of leadership, and I use leadership hats as a heuristic. I call it the leading hat, the training hat, the coaching hat, and the managing hat. The leading hat is an MO. It's about inspiring people, right? The training hat is making sure they have the knowledge and skills to be successful. The coaching hat is supporting the generalization of those skills into the natural environment, right? So helping them to behave well enough and long enough that they produce, outcomes, reinforcing outcomes. And then the managing hats is about maintenance of those behaviors, So I just overlaying the science on that stuff. So that's what was interesting to me.
Good stuff, man.
Thank you, brother.
Good stuff.
I'm going to go back and read this and listen to this and apply this to my company.
But man, it'll make your life easier. You're going to produce better results. You're going to get better performance. You're going to be able to free stuff up. The other thing is, as behavior analysts, people can become prompt dependent on us because we have the knowledge, right? So we got to help people better assess, problem solve, make decisions, and take actions. That's like the coaching hat. Once they know what to do, you shift to asking them questions about their behavior and the impact of their behavior on the environment, right? Because we don't want prompt dependency. So, that's a simple way to do it, using behavioral. But Dr. Nick Weatherman and I wrote deeply about this in our books, Deliberate Coaching. I'm very proud of those books, man. Yeah, it's fun. But it'll definitely help anybody.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Guys, you're listening to Beyond the Science. We're live here at the FABA Conference. Got to ask you another question, Paulie. Who is easier to coach, fighters or educators?
You know what? I'm going to say fighters. It's because the consequences are very immediate there.
Yes.
With, educators, I think they're the backbone of our nation. They don't get, it's very hard to teach, man, to engineer a full day for learning. It's very difficult. Yeah. And they're coming out of the universities not prepared to meet the demands of the classroom. So they're being dropped in there. Like I was dropped into the ring the first time with a professional fighter. I took an ass whooping, man. I got my nose broken, and I think about how many potential world champions came into the ring like I did, took a beating like I did, and never came back thinking they didn't have what it took to be successful. So we're certainly seeing that with teachers with turnovers, right? And we're seeing with RBTs, we're seeing with behavior analysts. So we got to do better preparing our folks. And one of the things that we need to do beyond theory and everything is we got to have something that connects the training world, right, the prep world, to the real world. And what is that? It's simulations. Have you guys played sports?
Yeah.
Okay. So in playing sports, we spar, right? In the fight game, right? Sparring is a simulation. When you scrimmage, that's the simulation, right? So you can control that environment. When I train a fighter, right? Let's say I'm training them to slip a punch, right? Throw a jab and slip a punch. I'm not going to put them in there with another fighter, an opponent who's throwing their whole repertoire at them when they're just learning a skill. Because they might try to slip the punch and get jacked, right? And then I'm going to punish that skill, or that skill is going to get punished for using it. I need to create conditions where they can successfully get in touch with reinforcement. Missing, making them miss the punch, putting themselves in a position where they can throw them punch. So we just work on the opponent throwing one or two punches, maybe at 30% or 40%, then 50%, and we up the velocity of it, and then we start layering on more skills, and pretty soon, why would they not do this? Because they're doing it successfully in the actual closest thing to the real world, the simulation, right? So I think in education, man, I'm hoping, I was talking yesterday to the CEO of ABA Tech, and a great group of people there, that if they can embed simulation into our BCBA preps or RBT courses, they could gamify it, right? Where you safely experience consequences of your behavior. You write a plan, you speak to the teacher, and you find out, you see the kid ran off and got hurt. Like, oh shit, but it's safe. And they give you feedback on why, and you get repetition. You can apply reinforcement under different conditions in education, in the clinic, in the sports world, in business, at home, right? To see how these concepts generalize. It's part of the problem is that we're not getting people to generalize these concepts into the real world and practice. And we've all learned on the job.
So did you apply a punishment procedure to yourself when you got in the ring with a 250-pound guy that separated your shoulder? Come on, Paulie, we got to slip, we got to roll, we got to do something.
Listen, man. Look, it's my therapy, man. Honestly, getting there. Yeah, I sparred the other day. We were talking off camera on this one, and it really is like therapy for me. It feels so good again. I feel so good when I walk out, but I don't want to get hit in the head anymore. So I do all body work with these guys, right? But he is 240 pounds. I'm 200 pounds now, and he throws. It's on my Facebook. It's actually at the top of my Facebook page. You want to take a look? But he throws his punches with all of his might, right? And it's okay. I'm catching. Man, I'm a pro. I know how to avoid it. I'm slipping punches in between. All these. He's probably throwing 5 times as many punches as I am, but I'm just like a sniper. So he's bounced a couple of punches off my shoulders that hit me in the head. And this is the third time we've ever sparred together. Last time he did it, I said, listen, I don't think you're purposely doing it, but I need you to purposely not do it. If you do it again, I'm going to let the dog out. And I probably should have done it at first to punish that behavior. But I was like, I don't think he's doing it. But as a result, he ended up hitting me again. I let the dog out, right? So he ended up getting hurt, and I ended up dislocating my shoulder. Not even realizing. I went home that night, couldn't sleep, went to the doctors next day. They're like, yeah, your shoulder's dislocating. He popped it back into place, But I thought about it behaviorally. What would have been the right thing to do? Because I didn't punish it immediately. Right? Under these conditions, we both got more hurt. But maybe I could have just popped him real quick and like, bro, you can't hit me in the chin because I don't want to get hurt. But now we both. And I don't really know what the right answer is, because along the way, I certainly was reinforcing, hey, thanks for keeping your punches low and all this stuff, but it did not maintain that behavior. So maybe with the both, it could have made a difference. I don't know, man. Some philosophical, questions going on there.
I love this conversation.
I want to unpack that a little bit more. So, with you being a trainer, working with the athletes, but also being a, well-skilled behavior analyst, kind of walk us through that process of how much you embed your you're training with the science. So when you're training someone, do you walk them through that kind of traditional step by step? Okay, let's figure out what our targets are going to be.
I don't use that language at all.
Yes, well, yeah. So like, do you walk us through that process and then talk about the importance of my second part of like using their jargon and their terminology to where it's more.
Well, I'm going to go back because you're going to overlay the 4 hats on everything, right? So the 4 hats. First of all, I got to make sure they're motivated enough. There's been fighters that have come in that I've seen coaches and like the coach wants it more than the fighter. They're like, why aren't you showing up to training? I'm like, man, you cannot want it more than the fighter, right? This is a very dangerous game we're sending these guys in, right? So I can try to create a want for them. Like you could be a world champion, show them videos, right? Encourage them, right? Create this want for them, right? So then I got to make sure that now I'm looking at videos, so I'm assessing and I'm seeing what skills are working for them. And I'm always looking for pivotal skills. What's the thing that they can learn that's going to have a bigger difference, going to get them in touch with more positive reinforcement, more learning, right? And I have a few that I work on. And, I believe defense is really important. Defense sets up your offense. So I teach them some philosophies. But again, I teach them that skill. We do repetition, like BST, right? Build fluency in the skill. And then put on the coaching hat by, as I mentioned, like the simulations and supporting that stuff. The managing hat comes with the maintenance of those behaviors by having them on a schedule, right? Eating schedule, some sort of routine. When you come in, you hit the bag. You're just going to work on this particular skill, so we're building fluency in it. And that's how I really generalize it. But when I'm talking to them, I'm like, hey, let's take a look at this. Did you see? I actually have them go back and review their own video. It's so powerful for them to see themselves, and I have them count, right? How many jabs did you throw that round, right? What happened just before? Because I have a fighter that want to keep their hands up high all the time. A long-range fighter, I don't need that. What I need them to do is throw longer punches and keep distance, right? That is naturally is their defense, right? Literally, Muhammad Ali fought with his hands down here. I fight with my hands down here. Why? Because distance is my defense. But a lot of fighters are told to keep their hands up, and that's not wrong. It's right if you are fighting in closer with fighters, So this particular fighter, as an example, he was getting hit so much more when he had his hands up. I said, I want you to count how many times you were being hit with your hands up versus how many times you were being hit when you were using long range I taught you. On a dime. And I had been working with him for months, right, to change that behavior. But when I wasn't there, he would go back, right? We'd drift back to the old behavior. And when he saw it for himself on the video and he counted it, it changed on a dime. So he started self-correcting because he could see, like, I'm getting hit a lot more and also landing my punch a lot less. So it's all very simple. I don't use target behaviors, Sometimes the measurement is just simply contrast, getting them to recognize, it's different now. I feel better. I landed more punches, Ideally, there would be counts so we could see the nuance of change, you know what I mean? But I'm not sitting around with a clicker doing this stuff, But it would be great to do that.
So this is just for boxing history. Who is your greatest fighter of all time? Who is your greatest fighter currently? And who is somebody that you see coming up like, man, that guy's going to be a problem?
Well, so I'm going to stick with boxing for most of this and then get to the third one, the guy that's coming up. Muhammad Ali, my favorite human being of all time, man. This guy, he was so far beyond boxing, man. I mean, the stuff that he sacrificed, the difference he made to the people in the world, man, like, he's the closest to me we had as like a friggin' prophet or something like that. He's just an amazing, incredible human being in and outside the ring that made a positive difference in the lives of so many people, man. So many people. So he transcends sports, right? My favorite fighter, James Toney. I don't know if you know James Toney, shoulder roll, man. I believe this guy might be the most underrated, maybe the greatest fighter we've ever had. He didn't deny anybody, man. He went up 5 weight classes, beat guys, man. He was beating heavyweights, doing the shoulder roll. He would not turn anybody down, man. He's just a tough guy, man. He beat Evander Holyfield,
Yeah, sleeper.
Yeah, he's the man. Now, this is self-serving, but the up-and-coming is my guy, Cody Cook.
Talk about
I've been with Cody. Yeah, Cody Cook, yep. He went 8-1 as an amateur. Only 2 guys made it out of the first round with him. And the one loss he had, he got injured in the first round. And he came back to win the third round. So he's born and bred to fight. But he's a sweet kid out of the cage, right? But he's an animal in the cage. Just so skilled. And a lot of coaches have poured into him, including me. He's 4-0 as a pro right now. And we're going to be down at the Gulfstream in Hollywood. And he's fighting for a title October 11th.
Okay.
Yeah, come check it out, man. He's the next coming, man. He is legit. We'll be down there. Follow him. He's Kojo Cook or Cody Cook, Kody Cook on Instagram, man. He's just a badass, and he's as badass as he is in the cage. He's a sweet and nice man outside of the cage, and I love that.
I love that. That's a good question, Joe.
Yeah.
First of all, I gotta give a shout out to your barber. Because every time I see you, Paulie, you got the sharp lineup. Like when you have that sharp feeling, you leave. You know what I'm saying, brother? Shout out to your bro.
Yes, man. He's the beard doctor.
I have a question for all listeners about. I know you've written many books, but if there's one book outside of anything that you've written, there's one book that you could recommend, particularly behavior scientists could read. What would that be?
Oh man, you mean for my own books or any books?
Just that you would recommend that on your books.
Okay, I guess it just because it turned me on to OBM. I would start with Bring Out the Best in People.
Classic.
Right, that was the one. It's a classic by Aubrey, and Aubrey just did what I love to do, and that is taking the science and overlaying it, in a different field. This was business in general, and just showing people like what you can do with the science outside of just special needs. And special needs are great that we have it to use there, but that's where I'd get started with.
Yeah, no, that's a great book. That's a class. I mean, I always reference that book. I probably travel with that book because I always reference it. It still has so many nuggets in it.
But and anything John Maxwell. John Maxwell is a guru in leadership, man. John Maxwell has a ton of books, man. I love all John Maxwell stuff. Even though he's not a behavior scientist, anything he talks about can be explained through behavior principles,
Do you have any beefs right now with anything ABA that's going on in our science?
Beefs, you said?
Yeah, beefs or any things that you really want to see resolved that is like it really ticks you off.
I've written a lot about it, man. I've been very, public about it. I feel like we start to get too much, and when I say we, some people, I think that people with really good intent start to hang their hats on certain things that are very nuanced. Let's say like assent or trauma-informed care. I love the principles of trauma-informed care, right? Safe, cooperation, collaboration, respect for people, empowering them, I call it, and there's like 6 grounding, pillars of it. I call it the way shit should be. Why would we not want everybody to feel safe, right? And cooperate with them and give them choice, right? So if we want, say, the teacher to create that environment for the learner, they also need to feel safe and cooperative and have choice, right? So in order to do that, we have to overlay an OBM lens on this. How are we going to measure trauma? Because I hear people say, well, we are trauma informed. Well, are you really? What does that mean? How are you measuring that, right? What results, right, are we doing it? And what behaviors do people need to engage in? So if we want that student, right, we're going to treat them using trauma-informed approaches. What does the teacher need to do that's going to impact that? And how are we going to get the teacher to do that using the very same principles, right? How are we going to help them feel safe and give them choice and cooperative collaboration? So the principles of trauma-informed care are very near and dear to my values. But values are not behaviors. We have to unpack those values into behaviors, and we have to have measures for them, because in the end, it's not about your intent. I think everybody's very well intended, right? It's about impact. So I feel like sometimes we're playing like word games, like even the assent stuff, right? I believe that and Meryl talked about this earlier with like getting people to collaborate or cooperate. I forget the terms, right? I love the idea of it. Of course, I want people to be engaged in it, right? I want assent with everybody that I'm going to work with, but like there were some things like, let's say a learner, and I wrote about this with Steve Ward, who's brilliant. If you ever get a chance, have him on your podcast. Him and Meryl, I think, are equally brilliant, they're just those guys, Civil
discourse.
Yeah. But we actually wrote some articles about this, about the nuance of this stuff. Let's say you have a learner that's got an infected tooth, and they don't want to go to the doctors. Guys, you know what? We can't allow that. It could get sepsis, you could die, something bad. So as much as I want you to, I'm going to do my best, because getting assent from people, it's a skill. I use motivational interviewing. People need to know what's in it for them, right? We certainly want them to make the decisions, but in the end, you have a very young learner, a learner that's not informed, right? Can they really make those kind of decisions? But I think the point behind it is really important. We want to engage the learners. We want them to know what's in it for them. And I say, if we do have to push them for something, let's get them in touch with some positive reinforcement really quickly for doing that, And I think that came out of the push because we were doing way too much compliance-based things. I don't agree with that either. Yeah. That's why all my books are about creating these environments that get the best out of people. Certainly forcing people to do everything. But we also got to think about, words like punishment. This is another thing, like, people don't like the word punishment, right? Because of our own history. Yeah. Punishment is just a stimulus that decreases the future occurrence of the behavior. There's nothing wrong with it. If you're about to get up and I say, hey, don't do that, the chair is going to break, and you stop getting up that way because the chair was going to break, and you do another way, I just punished one behavior and got in touch with reinforcement for the other behavior, Nothing wrong with that. Don't do math that way because you're going to get the wrong answer. It's going to take you a lot of work. You do it this way instead, and you don't do it that way in the future and you do it this way. Punish one behavior, got the other behavior in touch with reinforcement. The issue is with coercion. And as I would define it, that's the misuse and overuse in punishment and the absence of lots of positive reinforcement for value-added behavior. So that's the nuance of it. Just let's remember that what punishment is, and we all have our own history of they think it's bad. Scientifically, it's just a stimulus to decrease behavior, right? Let's not be coercive. And also, when we talk about this stuff publicly, the very people that say we shouldn't be doing it are the first to come out, right? And saying that we need to be compassionate and jump all over you. Like, what is going on, guys? Please, let's practice what we preach. You never see anything bad from me on social media. I got some people that come right out and try to punish what I put out there. I'm like, I don't even know. I'm putting out stuff to help people. If you want to help me be better, private message me. Say, hey, this was incorrect, and here's why. And I've had that happen. I'm like, I really appreciate you reaching out to me privately. Don't we don't, try to publicly humiliate people, And sometimes I'm not saying it's not okay to have discourse publicly with people, but let's do it in a way that's collaborative, right? That strengthens and shows that, we're working together to do something, not just trying to make you look bigger by making somebody look small, bad. Yeah.
So Paulie, you already know we're talking about civil discourse. So we had our first ever civil discourse. It was Adam Ventura, Bruce was on there, and man, we got to get you to get some dialogue on there. So healthy disagreements are. Sure. We don't want people to do it online or do that. We like to have a moderator and have healthy disagreements. So we got to invite you on. We got to invite you on with
us. Yeah, man, let's do it, man. I talk about leadership. Somebody has different views on me about leadership. I love that.
We got to do it.
Paulie, I want one round in the ring with you. I just want to try. I'm just feeling good today.
Hey, you got insurance? You got insurance?
I got liability insurance. I got enough.
You don't want this, brother. I've been in it for a long time, man. You think you want it, man. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect, brother. You think you know, and then you really know.
That would not even be a competition, man. Paul, I wish we had 30 more minutes with you, man.
I appreciate it, man.
We got to get to Atlanta. We got to come to the studio because every time we chop it up, man, it's always good, positive energy.
Yeah, brother.
Every time you come around.
You're doing good work, man. You guys are doing amazing work, man. I like what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, man. And guys, if you want to check Paulie out, he has podcasts, he has books, upcoming talks coming on. Can you let all the listeners know where they can find you?
Online, LinkedIn, Paul Gavoni, Paulie Gloves, Facebook, Dr. Paulie Gloves on Instagram. I'm just everywhere. Just Google my name, man. You'll find me.
He's a marketing machine, literally. Anytime you pull up LinkedIn or something, Paulie, I'm like,
disseminating machine. I love disseminating the science.
Appreciate you coming.
Thank you, man. All right, man.
All right, guys. We'll have more interviews coming up here. Thank you guys for joining us on Instagram. Thank you guys for joining us live. See you guys soon.
That's cool.
That was cool. One round with Paulie?